Henry Ford didn't invent the car, but he did something far more powerful. He made the world believe that the car belonged to everyone, not just the wealthy. And the irony? Henry Ford was never meant to be an industrial titan. By every expectation of his time, he was supposed to be a farmer. A life of muddy boots, heavy tools, and endless fields. But Henry hated farming. He despised the repetitive, brute force routine of it. And that hatred, that refusal to accept the path he was born into, became the engine that drove the rest of his life. His one stroke of luck was geography. He wasn't born in the middle of nowhere. He was born just 8 miles west of Detroit, a city transforming faster than almost anywhere else in America. In the mid-1800s, Detroit was turning into a vision of the future. Steam engines rattled through factories, lumber mills roared, iron and copper poured in from the Great Lakes, and little Henry, still just a boy, got to watch this world up close. He tinkered with neighbors' watches until he could take them apart and rebuild them blindfolded. He fixated on machines and spent every free moment studying how gears shifted, how metal moved, how energy flowed. Then, one class trip changed everything. At a Detroit rail yard, Henry saw a working steam engine up close, and it cracked his world open. It wasn't just powerful, it was alive. It breathed, hissed, roared, and promised a future guided not by muscle, but by machines. By his teens, Henry was repairing steam-driven threshers and sawmills in rural farming towns. Everyone else saw chores, Henry saw a playground. And then at 16, he made his first truly rebellious decision. He left home, against his father's wishes, and went to Detroit to become a mechanic. Detroit welcomed him. Industry was booming. Any young man who could use a wrench could earn good money, and Henry immersed himself in everything: metalworking, engines, machining, absorbing the entire city like a textbook. But the idea that would define his life came from something even more obscure: a British magazine describing a strange new invention from Germany, a gas engine built by Nikolaus Otto. It didn't have a boiler. It started instantly. It combusted fuel inside itself instead of heating water for half an hour. For Henry, this wasn't just an improvement. It was a revelation, and it became his obsession. By the 1890s, Henry Ford was chasing a dream nobody in America believed in yet: a self-propelled, gasoline-powered, horseless carriage. It would take years. It would take frustration. It would take failure. But Henry Ford was just getting started. By 1893, Henry Ford had finally done it. He built his first working gas engine. The spark plug, the timing, the combustion, everything just clicked. But turning that engine into a full working vehicle, that was a different beast entirely. You have to remember, there was no automotive supply chain yet. No parts catalogs you could just order from, no instructions. Henry had to invent every single piece from scratch. After 3 relentless years of trial and error, he produced his first true creation, the quadricycle. Imagine it: a lightweight frame, 4 bicycle wheels, and a small ethanol-fueled engine strapped to the back. It had 2 gears, but no reverse. And it had no cooling system, so it overheated constantly. But it moved. It worked. And Henry was completely hooked. He immediately built a second quadricycle, then a third. Each one was more refined.
Each one better. Confident he was finally ready, Henry launched his first company in 1899, the Detroit Automobile Company, with $150,000 in capital and the backing of Detroit's elites. The expectations were sky high, and Henry's plan was clever. He wouldn't sell cars to rich hobbyists. He would sell them to businesses. Delivery wagons, commercial machines, functional, profitable vehicles. There was only one problem. Building complex machines at scale is a nightmare when every single part comes from a different supplier. Think about it. If one shipment of bolts was late, the entire factory froze. If a gear didn't quite fit, a team of workers just stood there, idle. It took 6 months just to build the first vehicle. In 2 years, they only managed to build about 20 cars in total. The investors revolted. In 1902, they voted Henry out of his own company. He walked away with almost nothing, just $1,000 and a seriously bruised ego. And the man who took over the company? He would later rename it Cadillac.
Henry Ford had just been fired from the company that would become his greatest rival. But that failure didn't break him, it sharpened him. He realized that if he was ever going to succeed, he needed a completely different approach. He needed to build not a car for the rich, but a car for the everyday American. So he started again, from zero. He labeled his first new model A, then B, then C, and he just kept going, all the way through the alphabet, building 20 different designs in just 5 years. But the real secret wasn't in the car itself, it was in the process. Henry realized he needed consistency, reliability, and a single dependable supplier to make it all work. So he turned to a Detroit machine shop run by 2 brothers, John and Horace Dodge. The Dodge brothers would become his most important partners, building engines, axles, and countless other parts with an unmatched precision that solved his earlier production nightmares. And then came the moment that changed everything. It happened on a trip to a Chicago slaughterhouse. Henry stood there and watched as animal carcasses moved down a disassembly line. Each worker performed one small specific task as the carcass rolled by. He walked away from that slaughterhouse with a single thought burning in his mind. What if I reversed it? The idea of the assembly line was born. By 1904, Henry Ford had his factory. He was already experimenting with the assembly line. Production was speeding up, output was climbing. But he was making cars, not the car. He was still searching for a single, unified model that could change everything. Then came a breakthrough. 1906, the affordable Model N. It was an immediate hit, becoming the best-selling car in America. It proved Ford's intuition right. Build a car people could actually buy, and they would. But even as sales climbed, a problem was rattling the chassis. The Model N was built with traditional steel, heavy, weak. It was a car designed for the city, but America was still a country of rough, unforgiving dirt roads. The vehicle was limited by the very material it was made from. And then, fate intervened from the most unexpected place on Earth, Peru. In 1907, Henry met 2 brothers, Joseph and James Flannery. They weren't car guys, they were miners. But they controlled the single most important vanadium mine on the globe, producing an astonishing 92% of the world's supply. Vanadium steel wasn't just new, it was revolutionary. It was an alloy that was fundamentally stronger than regular steel. It was lighter, and it was far more durable. This wasn't just an improvement, it was the metal of the future waiting for its moment. The Flannery brothers saw the fire in Henry Ford's eyes. They understood his ambition, and they made him an offer that would alter the course of history. They wouldn't just sell him the ore, they would help him build an entire heat treatment plant. They would help him convert Ford's entire manufacturing process over to vanadium steel. For Ford, it was the final, critical piece of the puzzle clicking into place. 1 year later, in 1908, Henry Ford unveiled the Model T. From the frame to the axles to the crankshaft, it was built with vanadium steel. This wasn't just another car, it was quite simply the best vehicle ever built in America. It was stronger, tougher, and engineered to conquer the rugged landscape that crippled other automobiles. The country went wild. Within weeks, Ford had 25,000 orders. It was a staggering number, more cars than the company could possibly produce. So faced with impossible demand, Henry did something bold. He built a bigger factory. And in 1913, he perfected the moving assembly line. This wasn't just an experiment anymore. It was the engine of a new industrial age. And production didn't just increase, it exploded. Output doubled every single year. The price of the car was slashed in half, bringing it into the reach of farmers, factory workers, and families. By 1918, an incredible statistic became fact. Half of all cars in the United States were Model Ts. Henry Ford hadn't just built a vehicle, he had built a new society. One where mobility, opportunity, and the freedom of the open road were no longer luxuries reserved for the rich. As the 1920s dawned, Henry was one of the wealthiest men on the planet, and the automobile era, America's machine age, was already in full, roaring swing. All of it. All because a young farm boy refused to stay on the farm. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to The Business Lens. It really helps us keep creating stories like this one. And let us know in the comments what company, empire, or business figure you'd like us to cover next. We read every suggestion, and your idea might be the next deep dive on this channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.